She was fired for a simple act of kindness, by a man she was trying to help. But what Ella Sanchez didn't know was that the vagrant she fed was billionaire CEO Alexander Sterling. And her firing wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of his nightmare. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a story of corporate rot, a devastating choice, and the shocking revenge that no one saw coming. What really happened at the Onyx Grill will make you question everything. The Onyx Grill wasn't just a restaurant. It was a stage. Perched on the 15th floor of the Sterling Grand Hotel, it was a world of hushed tones, polished marble, and windows that showcased the glittering city skyline like a captive constellation. For the guests, it was an escape. For the staff, it was a battlefield, and their shift manager, Mark Thompson, was the petty general who reveled in the war. Ella Sanchez knew the steps to this dance. She was, by all accounts, an excellent waitress. She was quick, she was precise, and she possessed a calm, warm smile that could diffuse a demanding hedge fund manager or soothe a nervous first-date couple. Her uniform, a stiff black bistro apron over a white button-down, was always immaculate. But beneath the polished veneer, Ella was running on fumes. She wasn't just a waitress. She was the sole provider for her younger brother, Leo, who was in his second year of community college. She was the one paying off the mountain of medical debt left behind after their mother's long, losing battle with cancer. Every "thank you, ma'am," and "right away, sir," was a brick in the wall she was trying to build against a financial tidal wave. Her smile was armor. Mark Thompson, however, specialized in finding cracks in armor. "Sanchez!" His voice was a nasal whine that cut through the restaurant's ambient jazz. Ella, balancing 3 plates on her left arm, didn't flinch. "Yes, Mr. Thompson." "Table 4, water glasses," he hissed, gesturing with his chin. "They're at 60%. The Sterling standard is 80%. You're drowning them or you're dehydrating them. Find the balance." "My apologies, Mr. Thompson. I was just—" "Don't just. Do. And polish your station's wine glasses again. I saw a smudge." "A smudge, Sanchez. Do you know how much a smudge costs us in perceived value? It's chaos. Fix it." He smoothed his silk tie and glided away, his polished shoes squeaking on the marble. Ella took a silent, steadying breath. She glanced at Sarah, the senior waitress who had been at the Onyx Grill for 5 years. Sarah was watching, her expression a mix of pity and "told you so." Sarah had learned to survive by becoming Thompson's shadow, his eyes and ears on the floor. She kissed up, and she reported back. It made her unpopular, but it made her safe. "Don't let him get to you," Miguel, the busboy, whispered as he passed. "He's just angry his hair plugs are rejecting him." Ella almost smiled. Almost. The night wore on. It was a typical Tuesday. Brutal, busy, and thankless. Ella was in the weeds. A 12-top from a local tech company was running her ragged, sending back perfectly cooked steaks for imagined flaws and demanding obscure, top-shelf liquors. "He wants the Macallan 30, Ella told the bartender, David. David sighed. "We're out. Thompson hasn't restocked it in 3 weeks, but he won't let us 86 it from the menu. He says, upsell them. You know what's in the lockup? About 20 cases of high-end wine that never seem to make it to the floor. Funny, isn't it?" Ella just nodded. She didn't have time for conspiracy theories. She had to go back and tell a man in a $5,000 suit that he couldn't have his $300 glass of scotch. She was walking back to the table, steeling herself for the complaint, when a text buzzed in her apron. She knew she shouldn't check it. Thompson had a zero-tolerance policy on personal phones. But it was from Leo. "Leo, hey, just checking in. The tuition portal is flashing red. Payment due Friday. We okay?" Ella's stomach dropped. She'd told him she'd handle it. She'd been counting on this week's tips. But after the 12 tops inevitable undertip, she'd be short. She'd be hundreds short. She typed a quick reply, her fingers fumbling under the cover of the service hallway. "Ella, I'll handle it. Don't worry. Study for your mid-term." It was a lie. The pressure in her chest tightened, a cold, metallic fist. She felt the sudden, desperate urge for air. She looked at the demanding 12 top, at Mark Thompson berating a new hostess, at the endless sea of rich, oblivious faces. She felt like she was drowning, and the water wasn't at 60%, it was well over her head. The night was far from over, and the one event that would change her life forever was just about to walk in the door. He didn't walk in so much as he appeared. The Onyx Grill had a strict reservations policy and a dress code that was vaguely defined as upscale elegant, which really meant rich. The man standing tentatively in the restaurant's grand, arched entryway was neither. He was wearing an old olive-green field jacket, the kind you might see in a military surplus store. It was frayed at the cuffs and stained with something that looked like grease. His boots were scuffed and worn. A dark, unruly beard covered the lower half of his face, and his hair was a mess, as if he'd been sleeping in his car. He didn't look dangerous. He just looked lost and very, very tired. Mark Thompson spotted him instantly. His whole body stiffened, an alpha predator sensing an intruder. "Can I help you?" Mark's voice was a blade of ice. The man looked up, his eyes a surprisingly clear, intelligent blue. I'm supposed to meet someone. Could I get a table? Just for some water?" "Sir," Mark said, his voice loud enough for the nearby tables to hear, "we have a dress code, and we are fully booked." "Oh," the man said. He looked down at his jacket, as if noticing it for the first time. "I'm sorry. I've had a long night. I'm just waiting for my ride. I won't be any trouble." "Then I suggest you wait in the hotel lobby," Mark said, a smug, dismissive smile playing on his lips. "The Onyx Grill is for paying guests." He made a sharp, subtle gesture. A burly hotel security guard, who had been standing discreetly by the elevators, began to move toward them. The man raised his hands, a gesture of peaceful surrender. No, that's fine. I'll go. I apologize." He turned and walked away, not with the shuffle of a man defeated, but with a strange, quiet dignity. Ella watched the entire exchange from her station. She felt a hot flash of shame, not for the man, but for Mark, for the restaurant. She'd seen Mark turn away people in sneakers, but this was different. This was cruel. An hour later, the dinner rush was finally dying. Ella was given a mandatory 10-minute break. She bypassed the staff lounge. She couldn't stand the stale cigarette smoke and Sarah's loud, gossipy phone calls. Instead, she went out the service exit to the cold, concrete loading bay. The air was sharp with the smell of diesel and cooking grease, but it was air. And he was there. The man from the lobby. He was sitting on a stack of empty milk crates, his head in his hands. He looked up as the heavy door clanged shut behind her. "Sorry," he said, his voice rough. "I'm not supposed to be here either, am I?" "It's a free country," Ella said, pulling her thin sweater tighter. "You okay?" "Just running on empty." He looked at her, a real, appraising look. "Is he always like that? The man in the suit?" "Mark? He's a manager. He's ambitious." "There's a difference between ambitious and cruel," the man said softly. He rubbed his face. "I'm just trying to get a read on this place." "It's a job," Ella said, shrugging. "It pays the bills. Mostly." does it?" he asked, his blue eyes sharp. He seemed to see the fatigue under her professional mask. They sat in silence for a moment. It was a strange, companionable quiet. He didn't ask her for money. He didn't tell her a sob story. He just sat. "My name's Alex," he said, holding out a rough, calloused hand. "Ella." She shook it. His grip was firm. "Thank you, Ella," he said, "for not looking at me like I'm garbage." "I have to get back," she said, her 10 minutes almost up. She went inside, the brief interaction clinging to her. She felt unsettled. The night hit its final, chaotic crescendo. The 12 top, after complaining about everything, finally paid. As Ella had predicted, they tipped 8% on a $3,000 bill. Her heart sank. There went her tuition money. As she was clearing their table, the kitchen bell dinged. "Order up!" yelled the head chef, Rico. But there was no one to pick it up. Ella walked over. A magnificent 16-ounce prime rib, medium rare, sat under the heat lamp, a side of garlic mashed potatoes and asparagus beside it. "What's this?" she asked. "Table 7, Rico spat, gesturing with his tongs. "That idiot Thompson punched in the wrong order. The guest wanted the salmon. So this," he tapped the $120 plate, "is waste. Log it and toss it. Mark will have my head if the food cost numbers are off again." Ella looked at the plate. Perfectly cooked, steaming, an absurd, decadent waste. Mark's voice echoed in her head. "Log it for inventory loss and toss it. Now." Standard procedure. Sometimes managers even made them pour bleach on discarded food to prevent employee theft. Ella looked at the steak. She thought of Leo's text. She thought of the man named Alex, sitting in the cold. She looked around. The kitchen was busy cleaning. Mark was at the hostess stand, schmoozing a guest. Sarah was in the back, counting her tips. "This is stupid," she thought. "This is a stupid, stupid risk." But she couldn't do it. She couldn't throw it in the trash. In one fluid motion, she grabbed a large to-go box, slid the steak, potatoes and asparagus inside, and added a loaf of the house bread for good measure. She stashed it by the service door. 5 minutes later, she told her section she was checking on a spill. She grabbed the warm box and slipped back out into the loading bay. He was still there. "Alex?" He looked up, startled. "I can't. This was going to be thrown out," she said, holding out the box. "It's a mistake order. I can't stand the waste." He stared at the box, then at her face. He looked overwhelmed. I can't accept this," he said. "Take it," Ella insisted. "Please, it's just food. It was going in a dumpster. No one should be hungry." Slowly he reached out and took the heavy, warm box. He didn't open it. He just looked at her. "What's your full name?" he asked, his voice thick. "Ella. Ella Sanchez." "Ella Sanchez," he repeated, as if memorizing it. "Thank you. You have no idea what this... Thank you. Good night, Alex." Ella turned to go back inside, a strange, illegal thrill running through her. She felt lighter. She felt good. She pulled the heavy door open and stepped back into the brightly lit service hallway. And her blood ran cold. Standing at the end of the hall, half hidden in the shadows of the linen closet, was Sarah. She wasn't holding a phone. She was just watching. Her face was an unreadable mask, but her eyes were sharp, and they held a glint that Ella had never seen before. Pure, unadulterated triumph. The rest of the shift was a 20-minute eternity. Sarah said nothing. She went back to polishing silverware, her movements mechanical, her back ramrod straight. Ella tried to catch her eye, to explain, to something. But Sarah was a brick wall. Ella knew, with a certainty that settled like a stone in her gut. that this was bad. Thompson's rules were arbitrary, but his punishments were swift. And theft, in his eyes, was the cardinal sin. It didn't matter if the steak was waste. It had value on his books, and she had given that value away. The restaurant finally emptied. The last of the kitchen staff clocked out. The jazz music was replaced by the hum of the industrial vacuum cleaner. "Sanchez," Mark Thompson's voice. He wasn't yelling. He was standing by his small, glass-walled office, his arms crossed. "My office, now." Ella's hands were numb. She untied her apron, her fingers fumbling with the knot. She walked the long, polished floor. Each step was a drumbeat of doom. She entered the office. It was small, cramped with filing cabinets, and a large, obnoxious "Manager of the Quarter" plaque. And Sarah was already there, standing in the corner, not meeting Ella's gaze. "Close the door," Mark said. Ella did. The click of the latch sounded like a cell door locking. "So," Mark began, sitting on the edge of his desk, "it has come to my attention, Ella, that you have a little side business." "What?" "No, I don't know what you mean." "Don't play dumb, it's insulting." He gestured to Sarah. "Sarah, tell me what you saw." Sarah's voice was quiet, robotic. "I saw Ella take the prime rib from table 7, box it up, and take it out the service exit. She gave it to that homeless man from earlier, the one you removed." $120 16-ounce prime rib, Mark said, his voice dangerously soft, "with potatoes and asparagus and bread. You were very generous with company property." "Mark, it was waste!" Ella burst out, her voice rising. "Rico was going to throw it away. You told him to toss it. You can't steal garbage." "Oh, but you can, Ella. You absolutely can," Mark sneered. "It's called inventory. It's called cost of goods. It's my number on my report that I have to explain to corporate. Do you have any idea what my food cost percentage is this quarter? No, you don't. You just give it away." He was hungry. "This is not a soup kitchen," Mark roared, his face turning a blotchy red. "This is the Onyx Grill. We have standards. We have a brand. And our brand doesn't involve feeding every vagrant who wanders in off the street. What you did was theft, plain and simple." "Mark, please," Ella begged, the vision of Leo's tuition portal flashing in her mind. "It was a mistake, a lapse in judgment. I'll pay for the steak. Take it out of my check. Please don't take it out of your check." He laughed, a short, ugly bark. "Oh no, this isn't about the money, sweetheart. This is about the principle. It's about respect. It's about loyalty. Qualities," he said, nodding at Sarah, "that some of us understand." Sarah visibly preened, though she still wouldn't look at Ella. "You're firing me," Ella said. It wasn't a question. "You're damn right I'm firing you," Mark spat. "For cause, gross misconduct and theft of company property. You can pack your locker. Your final check will be mailed to you. Minus," he added with a cruel twist of a smile, "the $120 for the steak, and another $50 for the administrative costs of your termination." "You can't do that. I just did." He stood up, towering over her. "Now get out. Security will escort you. I don't want you touching anything on your way out. We'll mail you your personal effects." Tears streamed down Ella's face. Not tears of sadness, but hot, furious tears of absurdity. "You're a petty, pathetic little man," she whispered. "And you're a thief," he shot back, "and unemployed. Get out." He opened the door. The same security guard from earlier was waiting. He looked at Ella with something like pity. The walk of shame. Through the empty, dark restaurant. Past the bar. Past the hostess stand. She didn't have her apron. She didn't have her job. She didn't have Leo's tuition. The elevator doors dinged. The guard pressed L for lobby. "I'm sorry, miss." The guard, whose name tag read Frank, said quietly. Ella just nodded, unable to speak. She was deposited onto the cold, empty street at 1:30 a.m. The city, which had looked so beautiful from the 15th floor, now seemed vast and terrifying. She had $47 in her wallet. She collapsed onto a bus stop bench, the reality crashing down on her. Fired. Fired for theft. She'd never get another job in hospitality. Mark would see to that. He would blackball her. She pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked. Her hand was shaking. She saw the last text from Leo. "Night, sis. Love you. Don't worry. We'll figure it out." Ella dropped her head into her hands, and for the first time in as long as she could remember, she let out a raw, broken sob that was swallowed up by the sound of the city's indifferent traffic. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in desolation. Ella moved through her small apartment in a fog of shame and panic. She woke up at 7 a.m. on Wednesday, her body clock still wired for a morning of prep, and for a full, horrifying minute, she couldn't understand why she wasn't late. Then it all came crashing back. The stake, the alley, Mark's face. She had to tell Leo. That was the worst part. He came over from his dorm with a bag of laundry, whistling. When she told him, his face crumpled. But not with disappointment, with fear. "Sis, it's okay," he said, trying to be the man of the house. "I'll drop the semester. I can get on with that construction crew. They're paying $20 an hour." "No," Ella said, her voice a dead, flat thing. "You will not. You're not dropping out. I'll get another job. I'll work at a diner. I'll handle it." But the handling it part was a nightmare. She spent all of Wednesday online. She applied to fast food chains, coffee shops, diners, but the Onyx Grill, for all its toxicity, had paid well. The tips, combined with the hourly, were just enough. These jobs, they'd be half. She'd need 2, maybe 3. And then came the real problem, the reason for leaving box. She couldn't write "fired for theft." She wrote "laid off" or "seeking new opportunities." But she knew what would happen. They'd call Mark Thompson for a reference, and that would be the end of that. She called a free legal aid hotline. The lawyer who took her call sounded tired. "He fired you for cause, Miss Sanchez," the man said. "He has a witness, your co-worker. He has inventory that is unaccounted for. Your argument is, it was trash. His is, it was product. In an at-will employment state, you're toast. You could fight it, but it would cost you thousands in legal fees, and you'd be fighting for, what, a few weeks of severance? My advice? Move on. Move on." As if it were that easy. She was drowning in her own apartment, the walls closing in. She hated Mark Thompson. She hated Sarah. And, in a dark, quiet place she didn't want to admit, she hated the man in the alley. Alex, his polite voice, his "thank you." He had vanished, and she was left with the wreckage. Her act of kindness felt, in retrospect, like the stupidest, most naive decision of her entire life. Human decency, she thought bitterly, doesn't pay the rent. On Thursday afternoon, her laptop chimed. A new email. She was expecting a "thanks, but no thanks" from a Starbucks. The sender was Corporate Services Admin SterlingGlobal.com. The subject line was Confidential Exit Interview and Separation Agreement. E. Sanchez. Her heart did a painful lurch. Separation agreement? Dear Ms. Sanchez, your recent separation from our Onyx Grill location, Sterling Grand Hotel, has been flagged for review by executive management. We request your presence for a mandatory exit interview to discuss the circumstances of your termination. The meeting will be held tomorrow, Friday, at 10 a.m. Please note the location. Sterling Tower, 40th floor. A car service will be at your listed address at 9 a.m. Attached, please find a preliminary discretion and severance agreement. Your signature is required. A preliminary payment in the amount of $5,000 will be processed upon our receipt of your signature, regardless of the interview's outcome. This is a matter of corporate urgency. Regards, A. Vance, office of the CEO. Ella read it, and reread it. This made no sense. Flagged for review, executive management, the 40th floor. The Sterling Tower wasn't the hotel. It was the massive glass and steel corporate headquarters downtown, the office of the CEO, and then the number. 5,000. "Leo!" she yelled. He ran in from the kitchen. "What? What's wrong?" "Read this." He read the email, his eyes growing wide. "Sis, what is this? $5,000? Discretion and severance? This is hush money." "Hush money for what?" Ella said, her mind racing. "For firing me over a steak? Why would the CEO's office care about Mark Thompson's petty drama?" "I don't know," Leo said. "But a car service, the 40th floor. This is weird. Be careful, Ella. This feels bigger than a steak." Bigger than a steak. She opened the attached PDF. It was 12 pages of dense, impenetrable legalese, NDA clauses, non-disparagement clauses. But at the bottom, on the signature page, was the compensation section. It confirmed a one-time payment of $5,000 USD in consideration for... She barely cared what it was, in consideration for. That $5,000 was Leo's tuition. It was her rent. It was air. She signed it, scanned it, emailed it back. A reply came back in less than 60 seconds. "Signature received. Payment is processing. We will see you at 10 a.m. Ella stared at the screen. She was terrified. She was furious. And for the first time in 2 days, she was deeply, wildly intrigued. What in the world was on the 40th floor? The next morning, Ella stood outside her modest apartment building, wearing her one good outfit, a simple black skirt, a white blouse, and a worn but clean blazer. She felt like a fraud. At 8:59 a.m., a black Lincoln Navigator, not a taxi but a high-end corporate car, glided to the curb. The driver, a man in a black suit, got out and opened the rear door for her. "Ms. Sanchez?" "Yes. Ms. Vance is expecting you." The drive was silent. The city, which had looked so menacing 2 nights ago, now looked like a foreign country. They didn't go to the hotel. They went to the financial district. The Sterling Tower was a spear of dark glass that pierced the clouds. The lobby was not a lobby. It was a cathedral of Italian marble and modern art. It was so quiet, she could hear the click of her own sensible heeled shoes. Her name was, magically, on the list at the high-tech security desk. "You're expected, Mrs. Sanchez. Please take the private executive elevator, 40th floor." The elevator moved with unnerving speed and silence. The doors opened not into a hallway, but directly into a vast, minimalist reception area. The entire wall in front of her was a single pane of glass, and the entire city was at her feet. A woman, so sharply dressed, she looked like she'd been carved from steel, rose from a sleek desk. She looked to be in her late 40s, with silver-streaked hair pulled into a severe bun. "Ms. Sanchez, I'm Amelia Vance, Mr. Sterling's chief of staff." Her voice was like her appearance, crisp, expensive, and giving nothing away. "Right this way. Can we get you coffee? Water?" "Water," Ella mumbled. Her throat was sandpaper. Amelia led her down a wide hall, past original paintings. She stopped at a pair of massive, frosted glass doors. "He's waiting." She pushed the doors open. It was a boardroom, but not like any boardroom Ella had ever seen. It was dominated by a 30-foot-long table, but only one chair was occupied. At the head of the table, silhouetted against a panoramic view of the harbour, sat a man. He stood as she entered. He was clean-shaven. His hair, which had been a matted mess, was now artfully styled. He was wearing a deep navy blue suit that was so perfectly tailored it looked like it was sewn onto him. But the eyes were the same, clear, intelligent, and piercing blue. It was Alex, the man from the alley. Ella stopped dead. The blood drained from her face, and the room tilted. "Ella, please," he said. His voice was the same, calm, deep. "Come in, sit down." She didn't move. She couldn't. "You," she whispered. "Me," he said. He didn't smile. He looked grave. "Please, you've had an exceptionally difficult few days, and I'm afraid it is entirely my fault." Amelia Vance glided in, placed a crystal glass of water in front of an empty chair, and then disappeared, the glass doors hissing shut behind her. They were alone. "My name," he said, "is Alexander Sterling. I am the CEO of Sterling Hotels and Resorts." Ella just stared. The $5,000, the car, the 40th floor, the name, A. Vance, office of the CEO, Alex. It all clicked into place with the sickening finality of a heavy metal lock. "What was it?" she finally said, her voice shaking with a cold fury she didn't know she possessed. Was it a test? Some disgusting undercover boss reality show? Was I on TV? Did I pass? Do I get a prize? Alexander Sterling winced, as if she had physically struck him. "No," he said. "It was not a TV show, and it was a test. But it was not a test of you." He gestured to the chair opposite him. "Please, sit. I will explain everything. You've earned that." Numbly, Ella sat. Her legs wouldn't hold her. "We've been getting complaints," Alex began, his voice low. "Not from guests. They love the Onyx Grill. We've been getting them from vendors, from a few ex-employees, anonymous tips, stories about the management at that location." "Mark Thompson," Ella breathed. "Mark Thompson," Alex confirmed. "Discrepancies in inventory, missing cases of high-end wine, staff complaints of everything. Bullying, harassment, petty theft. But every time our internal auditors went in, the books were clean. Thompson was smart. He was covering his tracks, and he was blaming inventory shrinkage on employee theft, on people like you. I didn't know. He built a culture of fear to protect himself," Alex continued, his eyes hardening. "I decided, against the advice of my board and my legal team, to see for myself. I didn't want to send a corporate suit. I wanted to see how he treated people, both sides of the counter. I wanted to see what happened when someone with no value walked in." "So you dressed up like a homeless man?" "I dressed," Alex corrected gently, "like a man who wouldn't be seen as valuable. I wanted to see if the Sterling standard of service applied to everyone or just to people with an Amex black card." "And you found out," Ella said, the full, humiliating scope of the last 48 hours washing over her. "I found out," Alex said, his voice flat, "that I have a cancer in my company, and that Mark Thompson is not just a bully. He is a thief." Ella processed this. The pieces were slotting into place, but one was missing. "So, Sarah," Ella said, "the waitress who reported me, was she in on it? With Mark?" Alex shook his head. "No. In some ways, she's worse. She's a victim who thinks she's a collaborator. Thompson promotes based on loyalty. He pits the staff against each other. Sarah saw you as a threat to her seniority. She thought by turning you in, for something she knew was petty, she was securing her own position. She was a useful pawn for him." This somehow made Ella feel even sicker. "But me," she said, her anger finally boiling over. You let him fire me. You were there. You heard him. You saw him. You let me get fired, humiliated, and you just walked away." The betrayal was a fresh wound, sharper than the firing itself. "My life," she said, her voice cracking, "has been a living hell for 2 days. I thought my life was over. My brother. And you were just... What? Back here, in your suit? Was it a good laugh?" Alex looked genuinely, deeply ashamed. He stood up and walked to the window, his back to her. "That was not part of the plan," he said, his voice tight. "My security team was in the lobby. You saw Frank. They were under orders to intervene if I was physically removed or if the police were called. But this, I never, ever anticipated that he would fire you, on the spot, for an act of kindness. It was a scenario we had not planned for," he admitted. "By the time I was back in the car with my team, and we understood what had actually happened, you were gone. Why not call me? Why not fix it that night?" "Because," Amelia Vance said, stepping back into the room so quietly Ella jumped. Mr. Sterling's appearance at that location and his refusal of service officially triggered the full-scale 48-hour silent audit. Our legal and financial teams moved in at 6 a.m. the next morning. We couldn't risk Mr. Thompson finding out why he was being investigated. We had to let your firing play out, as unfortunate as it was." "Unfortunate?" Ella scoffed. "Your theft of that steak," Amelia continued, "was the final piece of evidence we needed. It was the only major inventory loss in the last 6 months that wasn't attributable to Mark Thompson. It proved he was using employee theft as his cover for his own large-scale embezzlement. He was logging your 1 steak to cover his 10 cases of wine." Alex turned back to her. "This morning at 6 a.m., Mark Thompson was arrested at his home. We are pressing charges for grand larceny and embezzlement. We found 6 figures worth of missing inventory in a private storage unit he'd rented. He's done." Ella was numb. "Arrested. Which brings us to you, Ms. Sanchez," Alex said, walking back to the table. "First, the $5,000. It's an insult. It was a preliminary gesture. Amelia." Amelia Vance slid a tablet across the polished table. Ella looked at it. It was her account page for her mother's medical debt and her brother's college tuition portal. The balances read, $0.00. "We have taken the liberty," Alex said softly, "of paying off the outstanding medical debts in your mother's name, in full. We have also funded a full 2-year scholarship for your brother, Leo. This is non-negotiable. It is not a job offer. It is not hush money. It is an apology." Ella stared at the zeros. She thought she was out of tears, but she was wrong. These weren't tears of sadness or anger. They were tears of pure, unadulterated release. The weight that had been crushing her for 3 years was just gone. Alex waited patiently until she had composed herself. "Now," he said, his voice shifting to business. "The offer. We would like to offer you the position of General Manager of the Onyx Grill, effective immediately. You will, of course, receive full back pay for the time you missed, and the salary will be 50% more than what Mr. Thompson was making. You can right the ship. You can rehire. You can fire. You can fix it." It was the fairy tale ending, the dream, the ultimate I told you so, vindicated, promoted, rescued. Ella looked at Alex Sterling. She looked at Amelia Vance. She looked at the 0.00 on the screen, and she said the one word they were not expecting. "No." Alex and Amelia both blinked. "No?" Alex repeated, as if the word were foreign. No, Ella said, and she was shocked to find her voice was strong. She wiped the last tear from her cheek. Thank you. For my brother. For the debt. You didn't have to do that, and it changes everything. But I can't. I won't take that job. I don't understand, Alex said. You think I can just walk back in there? Ella said, standing up. She felt tall. After what he did, after what Sarah did, and all the others who just watched. That whole place, you said it. It's a cancer. You don't just cut out the tumor and then tell the patient they're healthy. The sickness is still there. The fear, the culture, as you call it. She was at the door. You think the problem was Mark? She said, turning. But it's not. The problem is your company. A system where a man like Mark Thompson can thrive for years. Where an employee like Sarah thinks that being cruel is job security. That's not one bad manager. That's a broken company. Ella, thank you for the water, she said. And for my brother, I'll find my own way out. She turned the handle. Wait, Alex called out. She paused, her hand on the door. She looked back. He was smiling, a real, genuine, and deeply impressed smile. You're absolutely right. Ella stared at the two men. The room was so quiet she could hear the faint, high-altitude whistle of the wind against the 40th floor glass. The offer hung in the air, glittering like a diamond. General manager of the Onyx Grill. Back pay. A salary 50% higher than Mark's. The power to fire. The power to fix. It was the fairy tale. It was the perfect, cinematic revenge. It was the "and she lived happily ever after," written in a 6-figure contract. She could see Leo's face, graduating, free and clear. She could see herself sleeping, for the first time in years, without the crushing, metallic weight of debt in her chest. Everything they had just given her, the paid-off debts, the scholarship, was a gift. This was a crown. All she had to do was say yes. She looked at Alex Sterling, his expression open and expectant. She looked at Amelia Vance, who was already holding a tablet, her fingers poised to draft the offer letter. They were smiling. They had saved her, and that was precisely why she couldn't do it. A cold, clear understanding washed over her, chilling the warmth of her relief. She saw herself, a year from now. She'd be in Mark's office. She'd be looking at a spreadsheet. She'd see that the food cost margins were too high. She'd see that her labor was in the red. And a new, nervous busboy would ask for overtime, and she'd have to say no. A new waitress, just like her, would make a mistake, and she'd have to document it. She would be forced to choose between the people and the numbers. And in this tower, on this floor, the numbers always won. She would become Mark. A nicer, politer, more empathetic Mark. But Mark, nonetheless. Ella took a breath, and, for the first time in her life, she felt the solid ground of her own worth beneath her feet. No. The word was quiet, but it landed in the silent, expensive room like a dropped weight. Alex Sterling's warm, expectant smile didn't freeze. It simply evaporated. He blinked, as if the audio hadn't matched the video. "I beg your pardon?" he said, a note of genuine aristocratic confusion in his voice. Amelia Vance, however, looked as if Ella had just slapped her. Her face went from polished efficiency to cold, sharp-edged offense. "Ms. Sanchez," Amelia said, her voice dropping 10 degrees. "Perhaps you misunderstand the offer. This is a senior management position. The compensation package with bonuses is in excess of $200,000 per year. It is a significant opportunity, a life-changing one." "I understand it perfectly," Ella said. She was shocked to find her voice wasn't shaking. It was firm. And I am more grateful than you will ever know. For what you did, for my brother, for my mother's debt. That is a kindness I can never repay. But I cannot take that job. I won't. Why? Alex asked. He wasn't angry. He was analytical. He looked like an engineer who had just watched a perfectly designed bridge collapse for no apparent reason. Because it's a trap, Ella said, standing from the table. She felt the need to be on her feet. It's a beautiful, velvet-lined trap. You think the problem was Mark Thompson. You think you cut out the tumor, and now the restaurant is healthy. She walked toward the window, forcing herself to look at the vast, sprawling city below. You're wrong, she said, turning back to him. Mark isn't the disease. He's a symptom. The disease is the culture that let him thrive. A system where a man like that can steal, bully, and terrorize his staff for years, and the only person who gets punished is the one who gives away a plate of garbage. She saw a flash of understanding in Alex's eyes, but she wasn't done. You're asking me to be the nice face on a rotten foundation. You want me to go back there? Into that snake pit? Sarah. What about Sarah? She's not a bad person. She's a terrified person. Mark taught her that loyalty is a weapon, that survival means being cruel. And what about Miguel the busboy, or Rico in the kitchen? They all knew, Alex. They all knew about the wine. They all knew about the abuse. But they have to pay their rent. So they kept their heads down. They stayed quiet. You put me in that office, she said, her voice rising with a passion that stunned her. And what happens? The system doesn't change. The fear doesn't go away. They'll just resent me. They'll see me as the new boss, the one who got lucky, the one who talked to the billionaire in the alley. They won't trust me. And in a year, when I'm under pressure from your office, she gestured at Amelia, to cut costs and maximize perceived value, I'll be the one making their lives miserable. I'll just be a different kind of monster. No. Thank you, but no. She had laid it all bare. The silence that followed was total. Amelia Vance was looking at Alex, her expression unreadable. Alex Sterling stood silent for a full minute, his gaze fixed on Ella. He wasn't looking at a former waitress. He wasn't looking at a problem to be solved. He was seeing her. He suddenly, unexpectedly, laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh. It was a short, sharp bark of pure, unadulterated surprise. My God, he said, walking away from the table and loosening his tie. She's right. Amelia, she's 100%, absolutely, infuriatingly right. Sir, Amelia said, cautiously. She's right, he said, turning back to Ella, his eyes electric. It is a trap, the fairy tale. It's just PR. It's a neat story. Waitress gets justice, becomes manager. We could send it to the press. It would be clean. He paced the room, energized, and it would fix nothing. It would be a coat of paint. You don't just see the problem, Ella. You see the system. I've spent the last year paying consultants six-figure retainers to tell me how to improve corporate synergy and optimize employee engagement. They gave me pie charts. They gave me PowerPoint decks. He stopped directly in front of her. You just gave me the truth. In 2 minutes. For free. I'm just a waitress, Ella mumbled, overwhelmed. You were a waitress, Alex corrected, his voice a low, intense command. You were. As of this moment, you're the solution to my biggest problem. You said you can't fix the company from the GM's office. I agree. So, from where can you fix it? Ella was confused. What do you mean? I'm asking you. You're the expert, he said. If you wanted to actually find the rot in this company, if you wanted to find the other Mark Thompsons, how would you do it? Ella's mind was racing. This was not a test. This was a question. I don't know, she stammered. You'd have to listen. You couldn't send a corporate suit from the 40th floor. Everyone just lies. They smile and they lie. So what? Alex prompted. An army of undercover bosses? No, Ella said immediately. That's a gimmick. It's a performance. You don't need to trick people. You need to protect them. You'd need someone who can walk onto any property at any time, not in a suit, not as a boss, just as a person. Someone who can go to the service entrance, not the lobby. Someone who can sit in the staff break room and just listen. She was thinking out loud now, the idea forming. You'd need someone who can talk to the housekeepers, the dishwashers, the night shift security guards, the people who see everything and are paid to say nothing. You'd need a way for them to talk, really talk, without fearing for their jobs. An advocate, an auditor. Not an auditor for money, an auditor for fear, for culture. Alex looked at Amelia, a bright, dangerous grin spreading across his face. An auditor for fear. God, I love that. Amelia, what was the budget for the Q4 Executive Synergy Retreat in Maui? Sir, it's $1.2 million, Amelia said, her eyes widening as she saw where this was going. Cancel it, Alex said flatly. All of it. We're reallocating the budget. He turned back to Ella. I am creating a new division. Right now. It's not human resources. It's not operations. It will be the Office of Cultural Integrity. It will be a small, surgical, independent team. They will have a mandate to find the rot. They will have full, unrestricted access to every hotel, every employee, every manager, and they will not report to the board, or the VPs, or anyone, except me, directly to this office. He took a step closer. I am not offering you a job, Ella Sanchez. I'm offering you a challenge. I am offering you a department. I want you to run it. I want you to build it, from scratch. Ella's jaw was on the floor. Me? Run? A division? I have half a degree in hospitality management. I was making lattes 3 years ago. I don't know how. And you have more integrity, clarity, and raw courage than my last 3 VPs of operations combined, Alex said. You don't know how, because it's never been done before. We'll invent it together. We will provide a full legal and HR support team. Amelia Vance chimed in, her voice now sharp with a new, different kind of efficiency. She was on board. A corporate jet will be at your disposal, not for luxury, she added, echoing Alex's thoughts, but for speed. We will provide any executive training, any resources you require. You will build your own team. You will set your own agenda. Your salary will be commensurate with your new title, Director of Cultural Integrity. Alex nodded. Your first assignment. I was going to say Miami. The hotel manager there, Mr. James Peterson, is a protege of Mark Thompson. They came up together. His waste reports are suspicious. He was offering her the world, the power to fix not just one restaurant, but all of them. The power to make sure what happened to her could never happen to anyone else. Ella looked from Alex to Amelia. She thought of Mark's sneering face. She thought of Sarah's desperate, triumphant eyes. She thought of herself, crying on a bus stop bench at 1:30 a.m. This was a reckoning. What about Sarah? Ella asked, her voice quiet. Alex was surprised. Ms. Cooper. She's on administrative leave. We were, frankly, going to terminate her for her role in in the incident. No, Ella said. Her voice was final. You're not. My first act. My first day. In my new role. I'm not flying to Miami. I'm not reading a training manual. I'm not going to a synergy meeting. She looked at Alex, her eyes as hard and clear as the glass wall behind him. I'm going back to the Onyx Grill. Right now. Today. A slow, deeply impressed smile spread across Alexander Sterling's face. I want to talk to Sarah, Ella continued. I want to talk to Miguel. I want to talk to Rico in the kitchen. I want to talk to everyone who was there. I'm not firing anyone. I'm going to listen. My new division starts, right now, in that kitchen, with them. Alex looked at Amelia. Amelia looked at him. The smile they shared was one of pure, unadulterated victory. Amelia, Alex said, already moving toward the door, clear my schedule for the rest of the day, and clear hers. Call security at the Grand Hotel. Tell them, Director Sanchez is on her way, and she has full, Tier 1 executive authority. She answers to no one but me. Get her a permanent keycard. And call the tailor. Get her measurements. She needs a new wardrobe. Starting yesterday. Alex held the massive glass door open for her. After you, Director. Ella walked out of the boardroom. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't a manager. She was something new. As they rode the silent, high-speed elevator down, Alex stood beside her. Ready for this? Ella looked at her own reflection in the polished steel doors. She saw the same black skirt, the same simple blouse, but the woman wearing them was not the same. She was no longer drowning. Yes, she said, as the elevator dinged in the grand lobby. But we're not going out the front. We're going to the loading bay. I'll take the service entrance. In the end, it wasn't just about a job. It was about a system that punishes kindness and rewards cruelty. Ella Sanchez's story is a powerful reminder that one person's integrity can change everything, even in the face of corporate greed. But the question remains, are companies like Sterling Hotels really changing or just managing their image? What would you have done in Ella's position? Would you have taken the manager job? What do you think should have happened to Sarah? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story shocked you, if it made you think, and if you believe in rewarding integrity, please hit that like button, share it with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas that will leave you breathless. We have a new story coming next week, and you won't want to miss it.